York. I'm the Bulldog. Thanks for being with us. Us being Sal Capaccio, who's joining us from his home studio. And we are joined now on the West Her Hotline by News Channel 7's lead sports director, sports reporter. What is your title, Matt Bove? I mean, whatever. I play golf with you. I should know. I could have looked, and I didn't, and it's being sloppy now. The king, czar of Channel 7 Sports. What is your title, Matt Bove?
Director, but really any of the things that you said, I feel like work just perfectly.
All right. Well, it's nice. We know Matt in-house here under the Odyssey umbrella as the co-host of It's Always Game Day in Buffalo with our Sal Capaccio. So I thought while Sal was going to be in here co-hosting with me for a couple of hours, that it would be a good time to bring Matt in. Matt, do you want to jump in on the conversation we had for the first hour regarding, maybe you've already done this on a podcast form with Sal, regarding the two open practices that the Bills have scheduled and now, as of a little while ago, officially announced?
I really like what the Bills did here. I think that there was a lot of unnecessary kind of blowback on this. I also am coming at it not from a PSL standpoint. So, like, for me, obviously, I'm not somebody who has a PSL. I didn't spend my money to have a PSL. But I feel like if you do, you have a lot of opportunities to get there to the stadium. And if you don't, this is the best opportunity you're going to have. And, you know, we have been fortunate in the media to get several sneak peeks and looks at the stadium. And every time we're posting stuff, that's the comment we see most often. I'm never going to be able to get here. I need to look at these videos because I won't have a chance to see the stadium. So this feels like a really good opportunity for at least 60,000 people to come in and see the stadium. So I'm glad that they're doing an additional thing to the blue and red, because it would have felt a little icky to me if there wasn't that opportunity for fans who don't have season tickets, who don't have PSL.
You know what else was just you brought up to me, and someone texted me this, and it's a good reminder, and I think it's been lost kind of in the shuffle, guys, which is the second open practice is actually after the first preseason game. So PSL holders not only have the first open practice, you also have the first preseason game right after that, the following week, and then it's the second open practice.
And this all kind of builds into the whole weird training camp schedule thing this year, because it feels like they're not in Rochester very long. But now it's starting to make sense why the schedule was built the way it was, because I know that the longer that they're in Rochester, the more open practices there are and the more chances people get to see the team. But with the holiday, with the preseason, with the multiple preseason games, the open scrimmage, and now the additional open scrimmage, it all is starting to piece itself together a little bit. And that is a good point, because I didn't even realize that, Sal. I didn't even realize that the first preseason game and the blue and red scrimmage were actually before this second open practice.
Yeah. All right, well, that's that then. I saw a clip. We can move on. I saw a clip of your podcast talking about the Bills standing as are they the second favorite and the where do they stand? I haven't looked today. Co-favorites for the Super Bowl, and whether that's warranted. And Matt, from what I heard of your opinion, you can take all the time you want to elaborate on it here. Like, I'm one who still is sort of looking at that, and I want to respect it. But I have questions. Like, there's a lot of change here. And I know Josh Allen is the great eraser. But I don't know. I don't want to just assume everything goes as smoothly as it appears from the outside anyway to have gone the 9 years that Sean McDermott was here. I think there's just a lot of new faces and new places that, to me, you know, could take some adjustment time. And their schedule is really tough, especially early.
I agree with you. I actually think that it's probably too much respect. And some people might scoff at that and say they have Josh Allen. They have the most reliable and trustworthy quarterback in the entire NFL. I agree with that, but I also think we're maybe discrediting what Sean McDermott did to raise the floor of this team for several years. And that's not to say that they didn't make the right decision. They are shooting for the ceiling. They are trying to reach a point that they had not gotten with Sean McDermott. But I think the thing that Sean McDermott was so good at was making sure that this team got into the playoffs and didn't have the dips that some of the other contenders have had. The Chiefs are in a different conversation, and obviously the Mahomes injury played into it a little bit last year, even though that didn't happen until after they were going to miss the playoffs. But, like, look at the Ravens, right? They have had seasons where they just kind of vanish, and it's not just because of injuries. So, yeah, the schedule, to me, is the biggest thing. And I know you're saying, okay, well, we're talking about the schedule in July. We don't really know what these teams are going to look like. I have a really hard time imagining that any of those first 5 opponents the Bills are going to play aren't really good next year. So just to get out of that at like 500, if they go into the bye week at 3-3, I don't think it's time to panic at all. I almost think you might sign up for that right now. You'd absolutely sign up for 4-2. And then at that point, I mean, if you are 3-3, you're playing catch up a little bit. So yeah, I think they should be one of the 4 or 5 favorites, but not co-favorites. I think that's a little.
Let's make sure people know the co-favorites for the AFC to win the AFC.
Right.
They're generally regarded as the 3rd or 4 overall for the NFL because the Rams are there, the Eagles are there, and that's generally the Bills and the Ravens. In the next spot. Okay, let's do a thought exercise, guys. Let's both do this then, because I understand. I get it. Like, wait a minute. There's a lot of change here. Look at the roster. Yes, you have Josh Allen, and as Michael Kay says on Yankees broadcasts, when the Yankees hit home runs, he says home runs are always the great deodorant, right? I mean, like, they erase a lot of the stink that you might get throughout. And, hey, Josh Allen does that. If something's going wrong, you have that guy.
You got
look around the AFC.
You got to hit a lot of home runs to erase 34 strikeouts over 2 games. Sorry.
Oh, my God. And that's what he was talking about, right? Exactly. He's like, you don't see that number because you see home runs. So, but let's do this for a second. Let's take a step back and look at the rest of the AFC. If you were making the odds, and Bulldog, you guys do reverse AFC power rankings, which actually come into play here. Like, where are you putting them then? Because I think it makes sense. I understand that from close up you say, well, what's the new defense going to look like? Well, what's the new head coach going to look like? Aren't they doing the same thing in Baltimore? I mean, Cincinnati's still got a lot of questions. What's going on in Kansas City with Patrick Mahomes? And, oh, by the way, they did have a few offensive line questions, and they've actually retooled their defense quite a bit. And what about receiver? I just think that every team in the AFC has these questions. The difference is not every team has a Josh Allen or a Patrick Mahomes or a Lamar Jackson.
I think that's an excellent point because I did what I always do when we do the reverse AFC power rankings. I pull up the conference, right, and I'm looking from the top down, and Denver was the one. And I don't know, do you believe they're really that good? Do you believe in Bo Nix enough to just assume they're going to have the same kind of year? New England had the soft schedule. Is there like a comeback to earth for them? Then you're into like Jacksonville, looking at last year's standings. So I guess I get it from that standpoint. I do think Buffalo and Baltimore, I have the same questions about Baltimore that I have about Buffalo, Sal. Which is like, can the figurehead, kingpin, 9-year, long tenured head coach, in the case of Harbaugh, it was 18 years, double, can the new guy just sort of keep the train running on time, so to speak? That we don't know that until you get up and running. I would still expect that there are going to be things that will come up day to day, week to week, that might surprise Joe Brady and Todd Monken. I think or Jesse Minter, excuse me, is Baltimore guys. Yeah. Monken went from Baltimore to Cleveland. I messed that up. Glad I caught it. So I think anytime there's a new guy in that position, especially, I think, you got to just, I want to pump the brakes a little on both of those teams.
Yeah, I agree with basically all of those points. I guess, what is the question with Denver? Is it just Bo Nix? Because maybe I'm giving them too much credit, but I think of Denver a little bit like I think of – so in my head when we were doing this, I was thinking about the Patriots just because, hey, they won the division, and I honestly think even with winning division, they have an easier schedule than the Bills, again, this upcoming season because it just works out that way.
Yeah.
I think of Cincinnati more as like a dark horse, but it feels like that's a pretty common team that people are picking, and that's completely reliant on Joe Burrow's health. But when Joe Burrow plays, that offense is pretty spectacular, and they have a third-place division schedule, which they should be able to take advantage of. Also, really like Jacksonville. I trust Josh Allen more than I trust any of the quarterbacks in the teams that I just mentioned, but I also think the Bills have a much more difficult path than those teams do, just because of the way the schedule falls. I mean, the schedule for the Bills is really challenging.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're right, though, Matt. Listen, Denver is like the opposite of the Bills or the Ravens, for example, which is their roster is really good, but you just question the quarterback, where the other two teams, the Bills, the Ravens, maybe the Bengals, you're like, man, the quarterback is awesome, but do they have everything they need around the roster? Denver's really kind of the opposite.
They're
And
buttoned up, yeah.
yeah, and but do you really think Bo Nix is that guy that can be, okay, yeah, they have that quarterback who's in the top, 10 in the league. I don't think he's considered like that. I mean, they're kind of like actually Philadelphia when people were questioning Jalen Hurts, and I think Jalen Hurts kind of proved a lot of people wrong by showing he's even better than what a lot of people thought. But they're a very good roster. The thing that is standing in their way is Kansas City. If Kansas City's healthy, and that, if Patrick Mahomes is healthy, they should be better, and that would be something that, to me, I guess put it this way. If you're Denver, is Denver more concerned about Kansas City than Buffalo is about New England? I could make that argument.
Yeah, I think what this exercise has taught me is that maybe they're all kind of in the same bucket in my brain, as opposed to like a very clear upper echelon and then a big gap. Like, it feels like we could do this and find different teams that go 1, 2, 3, 4, and they're all kind of right in that lump. So it feels like the range of outcomes is greater, and that's why maybe, to me, the second best odds or the co-best odds to win the AFC seemed at the beginning more drastic or dramatic than it ultimately is. It feels like we could get ourselves to, at least I could, 8 or 9 teams that realistically have a chance at representing the AFC in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's right. I think the days, we got pretty comfortable even going into last season talking about the Bills, the Ravens, and the Chiefs. The Bengals were like maybe nipping at your heels there, but they weren't quite as consistent. But like those big three and then everybody else. And now I think, and this maybe it's going to be as hard a year as has been recently, because, New England to me at least deserves to be in the conversation. They won the division last year. Same with Denver. So you've got bona fide contenders for the divisions, let alone the conference, on top of whatever Baltimore, Cincinnati, and Pittsburgh are going to give us. I think there's more competition. I think whether it's that the top teams have come back, maybe there's, I think, some of that because of the changes in Buffalo and Baltimore and the injury to Mahomes in Kansas City, and then the elevation of the Chiefs and the Patriots, and I don't know, maybe Jacksonville. Like I feel like Jacksonville last year, even though the Bills beat them in the wild card, I thought going into the playoffs, they were the best team in the conference. They looked the strongest on both sides of the ball, maybe most well-rounded, if not the best. I mean, I don't think Trevor Lawrence is better than Josh Allen, certainly, but I thought they had I thought it was going to be a really challenging, it was. It was a great job by the Bills to win that game. But, there's more real competition, more depth, I guess, to the conference than there's been in a few years.
Would you sign up for 11 wins for the Bills right now if I told you that they went 11-6? So that is exactly a half game over their over-under from Vegas. They're 10.5. So 11-6, that's definitely putting them in the playoffs for sure. It's probably given them a really good shot at the division just because the Patriots' schedule is going to be more challenging. That one is a really interesting question, at least to me, because I'm of the belief, personally, if they are in, they have a chance to go to the Super Bowl every single year because of Josh Allen and just getting hot at the right time. I don't think, even though we just did all this whole conversation, I don't really see a world where they're the 1 seed in the AFC. I just think the schedule is too hard, and for them to win 13 or 14 games feels a bit far-fetched. So that's why, to me, I'm like, just get them in. If you guarantee that they're in, they can go beat whoever they have to beat, whether it's at home or on the road once they get to the playoffs. So, question for both of you. Would you take 11-6 right now, or is that not enough respect?
I feel like the best would you take question hurts to answer, and this one definitely qualifies. There's 11, like I've said for years, Matt, and I don't know, Sal, if you know this, it probably has come up in, the millions of times we've talked on the air over the years. I think if you win 12 games in any NFL season, you've had a great year. I think 12 out of 17 games, it was easier to say when it was 12-4 versus 12-5, but I still think 12 out of 17, you've had a great year. I don't know what, might not guarantee you the top seed. You would hope it at least let you start at home in the playoffs, but still, who knows? So 11 is only one fewer. I think with everything that we've already talked about and how I'm generally feeling about the change here, that I'm not just assuming everything goes smoothly, I think I would have to sign for 11 wins right now. I think I would. I don't like it at all, but I think if you put a gun to my head, I'm going to say yes, I would take 11 wins.
I would take it for the same reasons Matt said, and also because I just did the research here as we were talking about it. It's very rare a team hits 11 wins and misses the playoffs. It's actually only happened a couple times. Now, this is only a 16-game season. I know 11-6 actually puts you in a little different bucket.
Yeah.
But the last time it happened was 2008, the Patriots season when Brady got hurt. Before that was in the 90s. So, you're getting in at 11 wins. So, basically what you're asking me, Matt, is if I gave you right now a guaranteed playoff spot and just let the chips fall where they may, I would take it, yes.
I was at a 4th of July party with my family. My father-in-law was there. My father-in-law has had Bill season tickets forever. And we were having an eerily similar conversation while throwing a football around in the backyard to the Bills and the outlook for the entire season. Because, that's what we do in Western New York. We have the same conversation everywhere we go. And my father-in-law was like, this is what it was like during Super Bowl years, of almost like the stress and anxiety that comes with the regular season to just get to the point that we're talking about this team getting to, of okay, if you could press the fast forward button, and I know the regular season is still really important and still really fun, but I would imagine this is what those teams in the 90s were talking about, and I would imagine this is what they are talking about in Kansas City and what they were talking about in New England for all of those years, of okay, do you have to be the 1 seed or do you just have to get in? Does it really matter? Last year, I thought they had as good of a chance as they have ever had at going on a run, and then they still fell short, and there's a lot of factors that go into that. I just feel like as long as they're in, I like their chances because I think Josh Allen can go toe-to-toe with anybody. And, I mean, he had a really bad day, relatively speaking, against Denver, and they still had a chance to win the game and probably should have won the game. So I think offensively, it'll be much of the same this year. And defensively, I think it'll be a bit more boom or bust, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that there's going to be games when they look far more dominant and also games where they probably get exposed more, and I think that's just going to be the Jim Leonard way of the Rex Ryan aggressive defense and also just personnel on that side. I think they've got a bunch of good players, but not really any truly great players on that side of the ball.
Matt Bove from News Channel 7, co-host of the It's Always Game Day in Buffalo podcast with Sal Capaccio. Sal's also on the line with us. Guys, before we wrap this up, we got about 5 minutes here. I didn't want to just end up talking about football, although I know that's largely the focus of It's Always Game Day in Buffalo. But, Matt, I know, and you too, Sal, we're a week into NHL free agency now. We all know what has happened and what hasn't happened. I'd like a read from both of you on how you're feeling about what Jarmo Kekalainen has done and not done so far this summer.
Go ahead, Matt. I can talk about this after you.
Yeah, I don't think they're done. It just doesn't make sense for them to be done because of the amount of cap space they have, the amount of forwards they have, the lingering names that they're still tied to, mainly Connor Hellebuyck and Patrick Kane. It just feels like something else is going to happen. And, I'm like most other people. I wanted to see what Elliot Friedman had to say for his 32 Thoughts podcast. And I listened to the Sabres part, and then I immediately went to the Winnipeg part. And when he's like, hey, I don't think Connor Hellebuyck is going to go back to Winnipeg, my mind immediately goes, well, where the heck else is he going to go if it's not the Buffalo Sabres? So that's why, to me, I still feel like that domino might eventually drop. And I will feel, as long as it's not like a gross overpay, which I don't even think at this point it would be, that would be a smart move for the Sabres. And then it's like the domino effect of, oh, well, if Jack Quinn was traded to Winnipeg in part of the Connor Hellebuyck trade, then I could understand why they want Patrick Kane and why is he waiting around all the way up to this point. And, there's still so many players that we have questions about on what's going to happen to them, mainly Dylan Larkin. Is he the big domino to fall? Yeah. What's going to happen with this Carlson offer sheet? So I don't think they're done. I think it's incomplete at this point. If they don't do anything else, if the only other thing that they do is sign Peyton Krebs to some sort of contract and then trade out one of their forwards in some minor move, I'll be underwhelmed, but I don't think anybody should be pressing the panic button. I think that this is like very methodical, and hey, you just really trust that Helenius and Auckland and Kulik are all going to take steps, and you hope that Zellweger can be 75% of what Byram was, and Crevier is probably a better version of what Stanley was. But it feels like more is coming.
Yeah.
Because if it's not, then that would be underwhelming.
Yeah. The one piece that I agree with that read of the lay of the land, and I also am paying attention to what any of the kingpin hockey reporters like Elliot Friedman, who you mentioned, are saying, and it still does feel to me like Hellebuyck is going to get moved. One problem I have, and I made this point last Wednesday, maybe around now after Jarmo Kekalainen spoke 4 hours into free agency and sounded like he was headed to Muskoka for the summer. Once July 1 tolls, guess what happens? Ukko Pekka-Luukkonen has a 5-team no-trade list. Josh Norris has a 10-team no-trade list. And, you're talking about Winnipeg. And I don't know that Norris was ever going to be a part of a deal, but it's always made sense that Luukkonen would be. And now he has to agree to that. And I don't know. It's not like we're talking about San Jose, L.A., and, Boston. It's Winnipeg. If you have a 5-team no-trade list in the NHL, I'm going to bet the chances, unless you love Winnipeg or your family's from Winnipeg or something, that Winnipeg, much like Buffalo has been, would be on that list. So that muddies the water to me up considerably on a Hellebuyck Sabres trade, because I just don't know how they send a goalie back or live with Luukkonen here unless they can find and this is I'm assuming a lot. I don't know that Luukkonen would nix it. I'm just saying he has that option now, and that complicates things.
It does, but we're also under that assuming that he would be a big piece of that trade, and he might not be because of the Stuart Skinner stuff in Winnipeg. Maybe they don't care about Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, but that was just the way for the Sabres to make it work. I don't see a world where they would have Connor Hellebuyck and Luukkonen on their roster. That's just way too much money committed to a goalie. But if the trade ended up being, and once again, this is completely hypothetical, Ryan McLeod, Jack Quinn, Radim Murtka, and something else, right? You just replace Luukkonen with something else. Then I think you just trade Luukkonen to a team that isn't on his no-trade list, because even though he's not super valuable, he's still probably an upgrade to some of the other teams that are looking for goalies. Or if you're getting ready to trade this, make this trade, you'd be like, hey, man, we're trading for Connor Hellebuyck. You're going to play 20 games if you're here. So go to Winnipeg and try and be a 1A to a Stuart Skinner 1B, or we're just going to trade you somewhere else, and it might be an even less favorable situation for you to be in. I just don't know how much value Luukkonen has in a trade like this. I don't know if he's a big piece that Winnipeg is looking for, or if he was just the piece we all immediately jumped to because we know, hey, goalie in, goalie out makes the money make sense for both teams.
Yeah, I could see them wanting to pair Skinner and Luukkonen. They're pretty comparably paid. Skinner got a modest contract, right? 3.5, 3.75, something like that. Luukkonen's at 4.5. I think you could live with that. So that's why that piece has always made sense. But yeah, good point. If they can fulfill Winnipeg's wishes, and again, I don't mean to be assuming that Luukkonen would say no. I'm just saying it's. I think we've been talking, a lot of people have been talking all along, of course he'd be in the package, and he has to agree to that now. That's all I'm saying. It's a little more complicated. All right, boys, you want to promote away. When's the next episode drop?
We already did one today, and it just came out, and we had our buddy John Harris on, sideline reporter of the Houston Texans, because the Bills do play the Texans week 1, so it's very appropriate there. Changes in Houston, what it looks like there, and John's very big on the NFL draft, so we got a lot. I thought John did a great job of analyzing the Bills draft, and what he thought about some of those guys. And then we actually recorded 2 today, Bulldog. So one will come out later this week when we answered some fan questions, and some were pretty fun, including who's the best goalie the Sabres have had since they drafted Jack Eichel.
I can't possibly take a kick at that can without thinking about it. And time is tight. All right, Matt, I will see you Sunday on the golf course.
Yes, thank you guys for having me. I very much appreciate it. And, I'll talk to you Sunday.
All right, Matt Bove, Channel 7.